This is The Strange Recital, a podcast about fiction which questions the nature of reality.
I mixed my first martini at 5. The morphine was taking its toll. The ceiling receded and the window looked out over the sea. The nurses appeared to be made of wire, sculpted as a Bertoia chair, pleasingly curving. What did the wire people see? My bones, working their way to the surface. The new work was all in color pencil. When the pain wasn't terrible, the sketches came easily, the gin and vermouth stashed at the bottom of the art box. Ice was available by the nurse's station. The sound of the cocktail shaker unmistakable, even with the door closed. Fuck it, the prognosis was death. The color pencil sketches were coming along well. A series, wooden doors set in thick stone walls, constructed by ancient hand. The work was graphic and devoid of human figures. The scale of each structure indicated by the presence of a man door hinged within the huge double doors, the large opening designed to accommodate all manner of machine and beast. The morphine IV tugged at my veins as I drew. A single glass bottle, tinted blue, placed beside each door like a suburban milk delivery, an offering, an invitation, an antidote to life. Drink me and enter. The heat of the desert apparent, the relative coolness of the alcove felt, sometimes a glimpse of the sea through an open portal. The drawings were not conjured, but culled from decades of my watercolors and sketches. A foray into the desert, my Bedouin Arabic failing and betraying me. This is your door, sir. Ahlan wa sahlan, an old man with broken teeth had said to me as I sat with my markers and sketch pad. This is your door, sir. A fortress where I could get a decent night's sleep without having my throat slashed, a wall around a single tree in a well, a carved-out place to defend. This is your door, sir. Those wire bitch nurses couldn't wait to open up the valve on the morphine drip and slam the door on me. What they didn't know, here in hospice, was that I couldn't die. Not that I didn't want to. I had inadvertently wished for, and been granted, immortality. Unfortunately, there were no conditions, no stipulations. I would suffer, watch loved ones fall. I mixed another drink. The call from the embassy had come early in the morning. The invasion was coming from the north. The airport shut down. There was bombing in the south. A high-speed ride across the desert of fantasy. Chaos and small arms fire in the streets. The ring roads soon blocked by tanks. It was best to lay low, they said on the telephone. Prepare to stay in hiding for an extended period. The receiver clicked. I wasn't even in my own apartment. My girlfriend was on holiday and I was staying at her place in order to be closer to the airport. We were supposed to meet in Spain the following day and travel to Alhambra to sketch and paint and photograph. That wasn't going to happen now. Every business was shuttered, the steel door pulled down. A number of my colleagues, I would learn later, had been picked up on the street, transported to military sites and strategic locations, held as a deterrent to Allied attack. I was the only occupant in the block of flats. All the expatriates were gone for the hottest months. I blacked out the windows, filled light leaks on the door. My girlfriend Liz had keys to her neighbor's flat. She would water plants, drop mail on the counter. I would be a hostage in this building for months. I gathered all of the food and propane tanks from the other units. There wasn't much food to be had. Frequent power outages made cleaning out the refrigerator and freezer a wise move when leaving town for July and August. If there was any good news, my new home had a Bertoia bird chair and ottoman in the living room. I would spend hours and days in that chair and inside my own head. I tried to read books that I pulled from the other apartments, airport novels, travel books, some poetry, and a leather-bound copy of the Arabian Nights with an uncracked spine. Most of the time, I spent drawing. I was drawing every day. There were numerous Middle Eastern treasures collected by the other tenants in the building. I raided every apartment for hand-hammered pots and bowls, water pipes, brass coffee pots, and teacups. I set up an angle-poised lamp with a bare bulb, each still life illuminated by a single source. The lamp, taken from Elizabeth's drafting table, could be manipulated to find the perfect intensity and shadow length, sometimes softened with a piece of 1000H. As I laid down thousands of pencil marks and deep black shadow, I thought of Elizabeth's work. Her watercolor, so elegant and simple, the curve of a dome, a single brushstroke, the paper unmarked where the sun blisters the eye, a vanishing cobblestone street, a brush rotating in her fingers, a few typical bricks. All this in contrast to the technique I was now using in hospice. Thousands of pencil marks filling sketchbooks as a madman, attempting to render the door, the portal I so desperately needed. I had been shown the door in an existential sense, yet I hadn't paid close attention to the incantation. This is your door, sir. This is your door, sir. This is your door, sir. In Elizabeth's flat, I held an ageless brass oil lamp, recovered from the living space below. A wisp emanated from the spout. I couldn't help but to inhale. The ceiling receded and the window looked out over the sea. I don't want to die, I said aloud, breaking my own vow not to talk to myself while in hiding. My lungs froze, embedded in ice. Positioning the brass lamp before the bare bulb, I brushed fine sand from the surface with my thumb, a damaged area exposed on the belly. I expressed desire for life. My wish had been granted. I had become the vessel. I regarded the treasures amassed before me, a tomb in brass in lieu of gold, a few trinkets for the afterlife, perhaps payment for the oarsman who would take me across. I made my innocent wish not to die my first encounter with the lamp. Life came on as an attack, crying with the first breath I drew. The power appeared an apparition, a cool stream of serpent-like smoke ushered into my lungs. Isolated as I was in this block of flats, I went to the lamp daily, trying to replicate that first encounter. There was no change in venue, no magical transportation. I lived on coffee, rice, and tea. The smoke, a replacement for food. Elizabeth's delicate scent on her things, a substitute for love. I started to see everything happening at once. I saw Liz, so beautiful, leaning over me, coming to my aid, a stranger rushing to help me as I had been knocked to the street by a cart in Abu Dhabi, the dizzying sun a burning halo behind her head. In the compressed future, presented by the lamp, Liz would witness a car bombing in the souk. She would rush to the injured to comfort and administer first aid. An ambulance would arrive on the scene, packed with explosives. It would detonate, killing Liz and the other peaceful, caring people. Every distraction would be removed from my path. Every lover, friend, acquaintance dispatched as I spun around the sun for eternity. My only charge was to carry the contents of the lamp through the door. The embassy called on the evening of this revelation. There was a seat for me on a flight to Frankfurt in the morning. 153 days after their initial call, they would send a car for me. At a debriefing in Washington, my only assessment was a plea not to destroy any historic site or ancient fortress, protecting and locating the door my only mission. I couldn't protect Liz. She was convinced that I didn't want her to go back because I left her flat a shambles, defiled her panty drawer, and robbed her neighbors. Liz would die. In the parlance of the empty quarter, it was written. Now there was renewed urgency to complete my task, to concentrate my efforts. The contents of my body cavity growing impatient for delivery. Magnetic imagery of my abdomen showing a raging, spiraling sandstorm. I opened the sketchbook. The pencils had chosen today not to cooperate. They were laughing and twisting as I held them. The pencils danced around the room. They started to taunt me, chanting in the sing-song style of school children. "This is your door, sir. This is your door, sir." They swirled about my head and jumped just out of reach as I made a play for them. I looked at the sketch before me, the blue bottle awaiting consumption. The pencils weren't taunting. They were celebrating. This was the door, and I knew where to find it. The pencils clattered to the floor. The nurse opened the tamper-proof door on the medical equipment, her chrome wire fingers catching the light, knuckles appearing as welds. She held cool, clear morphine, the bottle tinted blue by the sky. I would need to rest before my journey. She commented on my thirst. The sound of the cocktail shaker now in my windpipe. I would book a flight to the Gulf in the morning. I would need to hire a car. Soon I would return this vessel to the shifting sands, my bones working their way to the surface.
That was Ruinous Price, written and read by John Montgomery, from a piece of birch bark. We were expecting to speak with John at the studio about his story, Ruinous Price. But now, I'm bedside here in the burn unit at the hospital. I found John bandaged from foot to head, wrapped up like a mummy. There are 2 eye holes and a breathing hole cut out. It seems quite an elaborate way to get more morphine. Only the fingers on his left hand are exposed. Hi.
I came over here from the studio as soon as I heard. You know, the new receptionist at the studio looks like Jill St. John. Holy shit, my God, what happened?
I'm not sure yet.
Is he able to speak?
He's been able to communicate through a series of clicks, and he's incredibly adept at sign language. He can describe complex concepts by forming his fingers into shapes like Chinese characters.
Oh.
Yeah, we've also been playing a crazy game of 5-finger charades. He can also spell out individual words if I'm not catching on.
I don't know. Those finger movements look like involuntary spasms that signal pain and anguish to me.
Here's what I've learned about the story so far.
Did you ask what happened? This is horrible.
Well, he keeps slipping in and out of consciousness, and we really need to get the interview for the podcast. We'll get to that part.
Is that moaning?
Here's what I've learned so far. Ruinous Price is a true story. While it's written in the first person, this is really his father's story. The hostage situation, the sketches, the morphine, the search for the portal, all true.
And you got all this through clicks, hand signals, and shapes?
Yeah. Look, he's spelling something now.
K-O-W. Kowalski?
Kuwait. Good work. This is the unnamed country in the story.
I don't know.
Hey, I went to the studio and they sent me here. Did you know your studio manager looks like Jill St. John? Holy shit, what happened to this guy?
We thought it was you.
Yeah. How did we all end up here?
I left a message with your receptionist earlier. I said I got burned by my global positioning device, sent me to the hospital instead of the studio. I would be there at 3:15.
She told me that you were globally burned and at the hospital, room 315.
So, I learned some things about the character in your story. I learned that he was a Bauhaus architect and painter.
Who told you this? Kowalski?
Oh, yeah, Kowalski. It's right here on the chart.
Right. Well, Kowalski appears to have slipped into a coma, so I don't believe that we're going to get much more insight about your story at the moment.
I saw a few tables outside. We're all here now, and you have the field recorder. Let's move downstairs and conduct the interview outside. I could use some fresh air. Hospitals are full of sick people.
Yeah, okay. Let me pause the tape and we'll set up out there.
That's a fantastic reel-to-reel recorder. Have we used this one on location before? It's beautiful, set in that aluminum case.
Yes, Swiss-made, precise. What happened to John?
He was right behind us.
There he is, climbing out of that second-story window.
Oh, man.
He's like a cat, this guy.
Why is he wearing a lab coat and scrubs?
Hey, could I put a few things in this road case? Does this foam pull up?
You know you're being recorded, right?
I have a few questions about your story, Ruinous Price. Specifically about the lamp in your story. The lamp is an ancient symbol and metaphor. There are miracles of the lamp, and written in the Talmud, the lamp is called a lamp, and the soul of a man is called a lamp. A confusion of lamps. The Anglepoise lamp providing an artificial light manipulated to your character's liking. A leather-bound copy of the Arabian Nights with an uncracked spine makes an appearance in your story. A magic lamp is recognized across cultures and centuries. Wishes are granted to change station or situation, class ascension. The image of an ancient lamp and genie is prevalent in Western movies and literature today, familiar to children. The genie of the lamp in your story, however, appears as the master, not as the benevolent granter of wishes commonly expected.
Yes, the single wish for immortality is central to your story.
Is there a question here?
Well, a quest for immortality or a search for the phantom of youth is part of human existence.
If we hang around long enough, we may have an opportunity to observe the patterns of life and perhaps answer the great questions.
Speaking of questions...
Yes, the question of free will, or a lack of free will, is an important theme in your story. Immortality has been granted, but a single task, the search for the portal to deliver the contents of the lamp, has the full attention of the character in your story.
A lack of free will may be the cruel discovery granted.
And the lamp also plays as a metaphor for addiction in your story. Your character makes repeated visits to the lamp. The smoke, a replacement for food. Alcohol and morphine also make an appearance in your story, leading to a loss of all around you.
What are you trying to say?
I'm not trying to say anything. I am saying it.
The blue bottle, placed beside each door like a suburban milk delivery, appears as the key to unlock the portal, another drug to be ingested.
Yes, the search for a different plane of consciousness and a search for the door is the universal quest of all peoples, including the immortals.
Even the immortals need assistance, chemical or community help. That's why we're here at the hospital today. The mummy, Kowalski, he's an immortal, doomed to suffer for eternity. We've been sent here by Jill St. John to rescue the Polish patient.
Have you been sampling what's in the bottom of the road case?
Immortals know each other, or they're known to each other, a nod like homeless people give to one another on the street, a signal, making the connection. I thought at first that Kowalski, up there in the burn unit, was a colleague of your father's, as he had intimate knowledge of the details of your story. But now, I realize that the mummy upstairs in the hospital is your father.
What?
Brought here from the crematorium.
Are you fucking crazy? Stop that tape! Stop it!
Get tape recorder.
Is our studio manager behind the wheel of that ambulance?
She looks like Jill St. John. This is The Strange Recital, on the web at thestrangerecital.com. The background music to the story was a piece of oud music played by a shopkeeper in Istanbul and recorded by Sarah. You also heard an Arab music group composed of a violin, oud, and a darbuka playing in the hall of the Emirates Palace Hotel of Abu Dhabi, also recorded by Sarah. Finally, you heard Levels of Imperfection by XJ5000 from their record of the same name. Several of the instruments used on this recording were left deliberately untuned for years. This was done to question the preference of most people for instruments being in tune, which might just turn out to be inherent prejudice. This is episode 19071. If you add these numbers, you get 18. There's no significance to this. These are numbers, and this is what they do.